Hey, welcome back everybody. Today I'm making cornbread, but this isn't your typical recipe. You're not going to want to miss this one. So what makes my cornbread different than all the rest? Well, for starters, I like to use a lot less cornmeal than other recipes. But that's because I'm looking for a moist, tender, almost cake-like crumb. And let's be honest, cornbreads made with pure cornmeal are dense, heavy, and very crumbly. And that's not really what I'm looking for. But that cornmeal does have a lot of flavor that I'm missing out on that I'm going to have to make up for with different ingredients that I'll show you here in a minute. So I'm starting with jalapenos. And I like to roast mine first because it tones down that brightness a little bit and leaves you with a nice mellow flavor. Now you could throw it in the broiler, but if I'm only doing a few, I just assume cook it over the flame of the stovetop. Using a metal skewer, simply pierce the pepper through the stem end and cook it like you're roasting a marshmallow. Unless, of course, your idea of cooking a marshmallow is shoving it into the flames until it catches fire and then blowing it out. Don't do that. Roast it gently until all the skin is blistered and dark. And if you're cursed with an electric or induction burner, you can always break out the blowtorch. But just be aware that this method is quite a bit faster than your stovetop, so your jalapeno won't be as soft, but that's okay. As you finish each pepper, place them in a bowl covered with plastic wrap and let them steam for about 5 to 10 minutes. This will soften them up a little bit and cause the skin to slide right off. Then using a paper towel, wipe them clean. Next, remove the stems, split in half, and cut out the seeds. Finally, chop them into a small dice and set aside. I don't like to go too small here because I like to get a nice bite of jalapeno in my bread. Now, of course, with any spicy pepper, the level of heat can vary drastically. But with all the other things going on in this cornbread, I don't foresee you finding the need to go running for a glass of milk. But if that's your intention, you may want to use something hotter like a serrano or even a habanero if you really enjoy the burn. Now I want to add some fresh corn flavor, and what better way to do that than with using fresh corn? So I take 1 ear of corn, cook it, and cut it off the cob. And here's a pro tip. Don't just cut it straight off the core like you normally would, going right along the core, because then you end up with these big pieces that hold moisture and throw off the balance that I'm looking for. Instead, shave off smaller pieces at a time so that you don't have to go back and chop it later. But of course, if you're using frozen corn, you're going to want to chop it up a little. Then using the back of the knife, scrape off any bits that you missed. Now that your add-ins are all out of the way, let's build this bad boy. Starting with the dry ingredients, I have a half cup of cornmeal, 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 1/3 cup of granulated sugar, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and 1 teaspoon of kosher salt. Mix that up with a whisk and move on to the wet stuff. In another bowl, crack 3 eggs. Then I like to whisk them up a little before adding the rest of the ingredients so you don't splosh out everything while breaking up the yolks. Next is 1 1/3 cup of buttermilk, followed by 4 ounces of melted, unsalted butter, and 1/4 cup of honey. Now add in your jalapenos, your corn, and 4 ounces of grated cheddar. Use whatever you like here. It could be mild or sharp cheddar, or you can use another cheese entirely, like Gouda, Manchego, or Pepper Jack. Once that's all mixed up, add the wet to the dry. Then I use a spatula to gently combine the two by folding it over itself until there's no large pockets of dry flour left. And while this is all happening, I'm preheating my oven to 400 degrees with my 10-inch cast iron skillet inside. Take out the skillet and melt about 1/2 tablespoon of butter, being sure to get the bottom and sides real good. Now I got excited and tossed in a piece that was about double that, which resulted in butter pulling up over the top of my batter. It wasn't the most desirable outcome, but what can you do? Now pop this into your oven. It should take somewhere around 35 to 45 minutes. Mine was done in 39. So while that's cooking, I'll show you how to make a nice compound butter to add even more flavor to this. Take 4 ounces of room temperature unsalted butter, 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt, 1/4 teaspoon of smoked paprika, a tablespoon of fresh cilantro, and the zest and juice of 1 lime. This is going to be a party in your mouth. The paprika gives some earthy smokiness, while you have the brightness of the cilantro, the sour of the lime, and it'll all be balanced with 2 tablespoons of honey for a little sweetness. The only thing this party needs is a shot of tequila, but that's not part of the recipe, but maybe it should be. Now whip that up with a hand mixer and set aside. You'll know your bread is done when it's golden brown and the center is spongy with a little spring back. And if you're still not sure, you can use the toothpick method. If it comes out clean with no batter stuck to it, you're good. Let this rest in the pan for about 15 minutes before removing or cutting. Then, remove from pan using whatever method you're most comfortable with. For me, it's the old plate flip. Look at that. Dark, crispy outer crust, soft, tender, and moist in the middle. All that cheese, the jalapenos, the corn, it makes for a great texture that will keep them begging for more. And add some of that butter to it, and now we're talking. But you don't have to stop there. Other tasty add-ins include bacon, sausage, sauteed onions, fresh herbs like cilantro or sage. You can use cranberries, blueberries, pecans. It's really only limited to your imagination. Well, that's all I've got for today. I hope you enjoyed this, and if you'd like to see more videos with restaurant quality recipes that you can do at home, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next week. But for now, I've got some cornbread to eat. Bye.